I'm Peggy Olislaegers, and it's time for B.Motion Connects. Today, I am in dialogue with Lotte Vandenberg. Lotte Vandenberg is a Dutch artist, and she's a member of the collective Building Conversation, a platform for dialogical art. In their work, the conversation itself is presented as a work of art. Lotte is an important colleague for me. She's a pioneer. She's really somebody who steps into practices that till then were unknown and undefined. And I really love witnessing her work. We will be in dialogue and we will talk about equality, care, and what it takes to build a conversation. Enjoy. So Lotte, here we are. Can you introduce yourself to the people listening to us?
Again, thank you, Peggy, for inviting me, first of all. Hello, everybody. I'm Lotte Vandenberg in Dutch. And I'm a theater maker and artist, part of Building Conversation, and that's a platform for dialogical artwork. Part of a bigger group of artists, all in their own way, fascinated by what happens if we meet each other in conversation. And we look at the conversation as an artwork in itself. As a, you could say, a joint creation, an improvisation, a jam session. Something you really make and do and embody together. And trying to create work, performative work, in which we invite audiences to participate and to explore all the different kinship and different alliances between people, but also between people and plants and animals and things around us. Well, that's much more to say about that, but maybe we go into conversation, Peggy.
Yeah.
We jump.
Thank you. Hey, Lotte, we are going to be in dialogue, to have a conversation. And there is one word that I gave to you on forehand, which is equality. And if I repeat that word, equality, what are the first associations or thoughts, feelings that pop up in you, in your body?
There's two. One is connected to the work and to the introduction I just gave, where it's about the equality between the artist and the audience. I started to use the notion of participating audience, which of course is in a way always the case, should be always the case, but is very often forgotten. So how can we create an equality in that sense? And somehow remember ourselves and not forget that everybody present matters. And joins. And can change whatever happens. So I have to think, for example, because I studied at Amsterdam Theater Academy, doing the direction department, so theater director I studied. And there I had to write a letter why I like theater, and somehow in that letter, and I had to think of it often last months, I wrote, I like theater because you can, as an audience, stand up and say stop. And this, for me, also makes clear that there is a certain equality, no? It's not only the performers who decide what happens. We're all there, and everybody present in that room matters, can change. And not even human beings present, no? If a lamp falls down, it also changes everything, the gathering, the performance. So that, for me, there's a lot connected to equality. And then well, more connected to the political times, social political times we are in. Corona happening all over the world. There also is a lot of equality and inequality connected to the fact that we're in this together, but we are not one and the same, which was a sentence by Rosie Braidotti, and it inspired me. Mm-hmm. So how can we not forget that?
Yeah, beautiful. Because what was interesting, Lotte, was that I had conversations with several people this week, and almost everybody at a certain moment said, I am privileged. So Theresa Ruthhauer, Liam Francis, both colleagues of color said, I need to underline, I am privileged. So here we are, two Dutch women, white women, women who are part, yeah, let's say that out loud, Lotte, are seen to be part of the establishment to a certain degree of our art scene and the international art scene in Europe. Mm-hmm. What about your privilege, my privilege? What is your response to that if I bring that word into the conversation?
Well, my privilege is huge. And the question is how to not, how to deal with it and how to use it, how to see it, how to help others see it and act upon it, but not to end up in guilt and shame and block yourself. Mm-hmm. I think.
What is your daily practice in relation to that? Because that seems, no, it doesn't seem easy. It is a practice, no, to become aware of privilege, to work with it, to deconstruct it. You can't deconstruct it to a certain degree. What is your daily practice in relation to that?
Well, maybe before daily practice, I think it's part of our privilege that we are not used to stumble. And we are actually not used to practice or to the idea that we need practice. And to acknowledge that you don't know everything, to acknowledge that you have a lot of blind spots, that you have been blind. And you maybe see a bit more now, because I have the feeling that it's only glimpses still.
Yeah.
If I'm honest, like really within my inside feeling and brain. And in a way, there is this feeling that you can only fail, but how to do that without victimizing yourself or stepping into your white fragility. Yeah, so if I then come to my own personal daily practice, it's reading about it, it's talking about it a lot. It's changing the structure of the organization I'm part of. It's both talking with friends of color, with colleagues of color, but also actually more and more, I think we have to dare to really step into the white homework and to do it with white people only. And that's difficult because you can have the feeling that then again you're centralizing the white perspective, but somehow we have to go through it to decentralize it. So there is something that you cannot, you have to dive into it.
Yeah.
We cannot step over. Yeah, we did it already too long, saying we're colorblind and of course everybody and we all have the same blood. Yes, but as of course a lot of people say no. For example, I'm inspired by the lectures of Robin DiAngelo, who speaks about it very clearly. So I'm also partly repeating her words, but that yeah, so this almost safe space that I know from Black colleagues and, for example, students I worked with, they longed for safe spaces where they could be together. And I thought it's a bit dangerous and strange, and why? But now, actually, a few weeks ago, I was talking with somebody who said, but you whites, you should also create that for yourself.
So is that
and that's something I'm stumbling with. We did 2 performative conversations. We call it the impossible conversation on white privilege, and there everybody was allowed to join, but it was very clear that the aim of the evening was to contribute to the white homework that needs to be done, and that was actually very beautiful. So there was a mixed company of people gathering, but it was very clear that the aim was to really focus on the painful privilege there is and how to deal with it, or first how to acknowledge it and to think about it collectively, because I think it's problematic if we white people also start addressing this topic, as we address a lot of fragile topics, no? For example, I think we're very used to address painful and difficult moments in our life by going to the therapist and dealing with it in a closed space with only one person that we pay. So that's somehow the safety we created to talk about, I don't know, problems in your love life or sex or self-esteem or whatever. And I think this one we shouldn't address like that. So we have to stumble in the open, and we need each other for that.
Beautiful. So is your practice a practice of togetherness? Is it practicing togetherness?
Yes. And but for that, like for me, it's important to stress upon the fact that togetherness is not cheesy and easy.
Yeah, I know.
No, that sometimes that like you think togetherness, it's about harmony and it's about being comfy together and nice, but it's not at all. So it's the staying with the trouble in the togetherness. So to and somehow a togetherness that is a constantly shifting togetherness. So it's not together in one way, but it's for me connected to a notion of role fluidity, that I'm not only, for example, now we are together. And there's a lot of people also listening to us or watching us, but they're not there yet. But of course they're in our minds.
Yeah.
And like, you're interviewing me, but we're also having a conversation. I'm not the only artist, you're an artist too. A lot of people watching are artists. I'm also a mother, you're a mother too. There's probably lots of people. So there's a lot of roles we share. And during this togetherness, we can connect in different ways, and we can also disconnect in different ways. And I like this idea of a fungi network that is also between us. So we're not together in only one way or one direction. And I think it's good and interesting to constantly reshift relations.
Beautiful.
So to question the network.
Yeah, but also sounds like you invite us to stay aware of the fact that identity is something that is multifaceted, that you can continue to move, so that other aspects of that identity come into the front. That's an image that helps me a lot, that I know that I can shift my weight like dancers do, or that I can turn around my spine, and that as a result, another aspect of my being can be visible, and as a result also evokes different responses in.
It's a kind of movement, but also maybe dance, no? Not only of your body, but also of your mind.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Exactly.
this that's maybe the practice that needs to be done, is to create a flexible mind.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
but what I'm
constantly think, feel, because of course that's in a way one, in different ways. Like if you and I when I did mathematics in school, I always liked it if I could calculate something in different ways. So I could do this, but I could also go this way. And I think that's somehow that training we need, both with body and mind. And of course, the question is how these can influence each other or inspire each other or challenge each other.
Yeah, I recognize this, and I love the example that you're giving, because I know that that also gave me a lot of comfort when I was younger, to realize that, you know, there were different ways to different truths.
Yeah.
What I'm curious at, Lotte, is in my practice, when I'm part of a conversation, or I'm even supposed to facilitate that in one way or another, more and more the practice is related to creating an atmosphere in which we can be uncomfortable together, yet stay connected. Is that something that you recognize when I describe that? Is that something that is part of your practice as well? And can you give an example of how you, because you are very often the initiator of a conversation, you are perhaps a facilitator, or you give an introduction, or you are part, but how do you first of all make sure that uncomfortableness can be there without people thinking, oof, I'm out?
Yeah, I think it's one of the main, maybe you could say even goals of the work, like the main focus points of the work, that you endure this uncomfortable situation together, that you stay in it. And I think therefore actually this notion of performance really helps, like to frame a moment together as a work in itself, as a proposal, as also something you can look at afterwards. So it's something you make that's somehow super nice and beautiful, I think, of this whole proposal called art. No, that you do something, you place it in the light, you put it on the stage, you hang it on the wall, and you look at it, and you can reflect upon it. So there is an act and there is a reflection possible. Because somehow this notion of performance or artwork, it how would I say that in English? Yeah, it for a moment it lifts it up, no?
Yeah, it's beautiful. So was that one of the reasons that you as an artist started building conversation? Because I know you and your work for quite some years already, and there were years that you were making work that to a certain degree fitted more in the traditional, let's say, setting. Yeah. You created a show, a work, and we were buying a ticket anonymously, and we were sitting in your auditorium anonymously and enjoying it, because you have strong memories of your work. But at a certain moment, your work became building a conversation. So how did that happen? And
well, it happened somehow. It happened. Well, it took a few years actually to end up there, and of course it's still moving and changing. But what I started doing was questioning the role of the audience, of the spectator. And first, what I did is that, for example, if I made my shows like Wasteland or Rumor, these were mostly shows outside of the theater. And I started to question this notion of the tribune, the seatings for the audience. And very often designing the show and the scenography of it started with designing the seatings for the audience. So that became a starting point in my thinking about what is or could be theater. So already, yeah, so I started to question this relationship also between the performer and the spectator. And I always had the feeling that I, as a director who was not on stage, I was the first spectator. So maybe that's also why for me that space was important to know where I was or why I was there, and also how I contributed to the happening. And so, for example, I made Wasteland on a very huge wasted fields outside of cities all over the world, where we made a huge couch, bench, wood, super simple, of 200 meters where all the audience could sit on, because I didn't want them to look at each other, not each other's backs. So to somehow have and they were sitting there in this huge field all alone. Performers were like 100, 200 meters away from them. So it was, yes, you were seeing something, but you were also there really. And I did that more often, that in the end, somehow it became clear that it was about you being there. So more and more the focus was on spectators, and also on how they influenced what happened.
It's beautiful that you said I was the first spectator, because that underlines for me that in terms of equality, you felt one of them instead of a director who, as God, was preparing an event for them.
Yeah, and somehow it's also both. And then I come back to this notion of the role fluidity, or so I think that's part of my work, that I'm able to dance between these roles. So I'm also the one initiating, asking people, directing, making sharp choices. But at the end, I was sitting there, yeah.
Hey,
also.
Yeah, beautiful. And
it's moving between leadership and joining and this. So I think, for example, but now we hop from one to another, but maybe that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think this whole notion of a leader that is in control, of course, it doesn't exist, but also a leader that has some kind of objectivity or neutrality, like being neutral as a facilitator or moderator, it's impossible.
Yeah, it's a lie, you know?
It's a complete lie, but still a lot of the systems we build are built on that lie.
So Lotte, I call myself a dance activist. Are you an activist?
Yes, I am pretty yeah, I am.
And what is your definition of activism?
I was talking yesterday with somebody, I don't know if it's immediately an answer, but it's what I think of. I was talking with somebody about the letter that Bojana Kunst wrote. Did you read it?
No.
It's a letter she wrote during lockdown. About, it's a letter to performance artists. I can send it to you.
Great.
We can maybe link it to it for all the people who are now watching.
Yeah.
And it's about care. And she speaks about accurate care as well, something connected to knowing what you need to do to control, to the care that is hopefully given in times of, for example, Corona. But she also talks about the limitations of the accurate care. And then she talks about she calls it care with, where being present and attending is very important. and these are my words now, but like this notion of to care with others, somehow it's clear that you don't know yet what needs to happen, but you're there somehow to respond, to be with others, and to attend, to endure, and to react, but also to constantly maybe change your attitude and your position, and to move with, to be with.
Beautiful.
And the importance of that. And somehow in her text, she poses a question, I think, whether art, if artists become care workers, if art is about care, then do you lose your critical position?
And what do you think about that?
I think that's not true, because I have the feeling that taking care with others is a very critical act. And is also a very activistic act. So the performance we do, you asked before, like, yes, we introduce them, I introduce them, or other people from the team I work in. We introduce them, we say, this is how we do it. Then we ask, do you join? So there is some kind of social contract made with all the people present. Now you know what we do, how we will do it, how we will perform this conversation. Do you join? And then you can say yes or no. Like all these steps, it's super important steps to come to a place where you can care with, where you can be together and take responsibility for your part.
Beautiful. What for me is intriguing right now, because I strongly connect to the word care, and it is a word that in the context of the festival, B.Motion Festival, has been popping up and has been embraced already for some years. You refer also to a certain social contract or construct that is needed in order to create an environment in which we start to take care in the mutual exchange. But you also used the word stumbling before. And we talked about uncomfortableness and stepping into the unknown and making mistakes. How, as a woman organizing these gatherings, these conversations, do you make sure that the stumbling is still there, that silliness can be in, that people feel free to do something that earlier was underlined as a mistake? How do you make sure that that still happens within that construct, within these rules even?
Well, I think time is important there. And I was already heading to this, because like there is an introduction, you're maybe sometimes busy preparing the actual conversation for an hour, no? And then you start, and then you take 2 hours to do it. For example, it depends on which performance we're doing. And then there is a moment of reflection. Often there is a moment of eating even together. And so for me, that's also connected to care. So to take time, to be in, to have time together, and that also so to create an empty space in which we dare to step together, to be in, and somehow that there is a bit too much time, so that there is this notion of being bored maybe, or uncomfortable because there is silences, not being able to fill it all, which also makes that things become visible. So it's about untangling it, no? And time is important. It's not the only thing, of course.
I really love it that you underline this, because having been an audience member, seeing your work, having participated also recently in one of your conversations, time always has been an important element in your work, no?
Yeah. No, I always and still try to somehow reflect upon relationships and changing relationships, or the possibility for change.
Yeah.
And so there is this zooming into a particular thing, and then actually stretching it in time and untangle it, and not to have too much, not to try and focus on a specific thing together, but at the same time to now maybe it becomes a bit abstract, but so coming back to your question, like how do you create a space in which together you can endure this uncomfortability, because like the discomfort, I think for that it is needed that there is a super clear space, and somehow that there is a very clear focus.
Beautiful. So in order to
that also everybody can somehow connect to this focus in his or her own way, so that there is a lot of different possibilities. So that you still have the feeling that you can do it in your way.
So there is a call for focus. You will have different invitations to find that focus. And it seems that you're saying you need focus first in order to feel the safety to get lost.
Yeah, you need a clear framework. Yeah.
Hey, Lotte, is there a spiritual side to your work?
Well, I don't refer to that when thinking about it or talking about it, but I think there is. Yeah, it can be like a meditation, or what is the other word? Well, I lost the word, but like, yes, I do think there is there's a call, or you could say to contemplate.
But I also know that next to that, because I recognize that you also have explored and still are exploring formats in which you invite people also to become a little bit more humble, to be in dialogue with trees, with animals, with objects that we refer to as things.
Yeah, but I wouldn't call that spiritual. I think that should be part of our daily life and not only of our spiritual life. But of course, still there is a lot of people who shift, for whom that is part of. I would like, somehow I would like to invite all that thinking and working and all that kind of practices. I would like to invite it in the middle of our lives.
Yeah.
Where of course spirituality is also can be very much in the middle.
Yeah.
It's clear that the word spirituality is not, I don't feel connected to, but I can imagine that a lot of people see it like that or read it like that.
Because why is it important for you to expand the dialogue, the conversation beyond just human beings having a conversation? Why is that important?
Because we constantly are in conversations with others than human beings. So it's again about remembering and not forgetting. Like this is we can say we have to connect, but we are already connected. We have to remember that we are connected. So I think this attempt to be together, this attempt to connect, this attempt to be connected, it's all a bit forced, I think, because we are already together and we are already connected. So what we need is to reflect upon how and which relational settings we're part of. So it's much more looking at what already is.
Beautiful.
Instead of creating it. So again, that's about focus and attention. So be present, be attentive with whom else you are
Yeah.
present.
So
And
is
that's
it
maybe is already this care with, no, to be with others, and to really remember yourself that you are already.
beautiful? So could you say that it starts with almost a sensorial practice, that you feel where you are, who surrounds you, who you are connected to? Is it a deeply physical uh, exercise, also practice?
It's also a physical exercise, but for me, somehow, when you describe this, I think it's at the same moment a mental exercise, because if you start thinking of all the, I don't know, everything that I am now already touching, like the light is touching me. I'm also thinking of aerosols that we now constantly, like there's so much already. No, the table I'm sitting at, the chair, like. So that's not only physical, that's also mental, because I connect to the chair because I think of the chair, or I feel the chair and then I think. So it's so yes, it's a very physical exercise, but at the same time a very mental one, or we could say we cannot disconnect them from each other. And to, like this, for example, also where Bruno Latour inspired us. So this call for relational thinking. And not to create, I already said it, but not to create relations with animals or plants or tables, but to act upon them because they are there.
Hey Lotte, you referred already to various thinkers, writers. Is that a core dialogue that informs you and your work? So are you actively looking for thinkers, writers, colleagues who can help you to contextualize your work? Or is it just one element of the experiences that you invite in to continue learning?
Yeah, I needed to continue learning, to have this input of others. I'm not constantly looking for it, but there's moments that it comes to me, and then, if it's, then there can be a moment that this other person gives me words for things that I was already thinking, for example, or challenges me to question. And that's, sorry?
Which other tools are you having, or other elements are there that invite you to continue learning?
Well, there is a lot. There is my love life. There is my children. There is the food I eat and how I deal with it. So there is a lot of very local inspiration sources. But there's also what I read, what is shared on Facebook or whatever, what people send to me. There's books I buy. There's meetings I have, where somehow maybe the past months that change. Like I could also always be very inspired by sitting in a train or a tram and being with all these other people. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of work that I made that is actually inspired by being in the city and walking through the streets somehow. So this whole notion of public space and how we share space. So yeah, you could say that I'm both inspired by super simple moments of insight for my daily life, and there is mainly the reading of other thinkers.
Yeah, beautiful. Hey Lotte, I have a last question for you, but perhaps a stupid one, so you can also redefine it or give me a question. Knowing that you are constantly learning to have conversations, you made it, I mean, it's the heart of your practice. And knowing that we're living in a time in which so many people, also in my life, ask me, okay, we need to have a conversation. Can you help us to build one? What would be your advice, or perhaps you have a few advices to fellow human beings out there, colleagues, panicking artistic directors of institutes who are aware that a culture needs to be built in which we meet and engage and care, but who are also a little bit lost at the moment?
Yeah, I think it's important to take time for it and not to expect a total change of one good dialogue. Like this is so often, like we constantly say we need dialogue, but then we don't take the time, really, not always, to actually make it happen. So to prepare it well, to be aware of not only the content, like you can have nice questions to start with, but that's not it. It's really about the whole setting. It's about the relations you install in the form you choose. So for me as an artist, the form of the dialogue, the setting it's in, the time frame you use, it's all super important. I'm way more interested in that than in the content. Because I think the content is created by the people joining, and you have to actually try not to manipulate that too much. But the form is something you can prepare, you can take care of. That's the space, in a way, you offer. And so then there is connected to that, like we have to really trust upon the fact that people, groups can take responsibility for their gathering, so that you don't control it too much. So if the form is clear, if the space offered is clear, if the setting is clear, a group can take responsibility, should take responsibility for the conversation they have. So that's actually where we as collectives need to be empowered. That's maybe also something we forgot. Not that we think that we need facilitators and moderators and leaders to make things clear, but we don't, I think. We need good settings and rituals. Yes, we need time. We need commitment and engagement. But actually this practicing, like if you say that and I want to, and then I don't do it and I take it at home. So how to, that's what we all should practice. That's the work. The work is not to create beautiful dialogues with good conclusions. So there is a big mistake around dialogue. And then I think it's not one. It's never one.
No.
So you don't want to create a nice dialogue with good conclusions so you can continue working as you did already. You have to change the way you talk with each other. So in Dutch I say gesprekscultuur, so the culture, or would you say that in English?
Yeah, the culture of conversations.
The culture, like how you talk with each other. That's a climate in a way, no?
Yeah, and it seems that you're referring also to a rhythm. You know, it's not a freak incident. It's not a single moment. It is a rhythm. It's a song.
So we have to install these new rhythms or rituals of talking, and somehow what I would like to do as an artist is actually to then together with, I don't know, whatever institution or group that wants to be in dialogue, then how could you, in a way, together with them, design this rhythm and the forms that they need? Because I really think it's something that we need to create with each other. And there's also, I think, so it's not about solving anything. Also in connection to racism, no? We try to solve it too quickly, to step over the shit and to do as if it wasn't there and to continue. So the dialogue should not be there to solve, but to really install another way of being together and acting, and maybe not even another way, but a higher awareness or reflection upon.
Yeah.
So what we try to do in the performative conversations we create is actually to have a moment in which you break the pattern. So you propose, let's do it another way. And then by doing that, you can reflect upon how you normally do it. And then you can maybe see, no, that I want to change, or that I want to keep, or so how to create space to look at how we do it and how we are connected. And that again, I think is where art can help. Art is not the only thing that can somehow help us create that space or that view upon, but
but it is an important tool, or can be an important tool.
To frame it for a moment. Outside of the daily rumble, and to look at it with care.
Beautiful. Thanks Lotte.
Thank you.